students, myself DrKHemanthKumar Kumar, Senior Resident in the Department of General Medicine, Sree Balaji Medical College and Hospital. I have 4 years of teaching experience to my name and 2 publications to my credit. So today we are going to see about the topic of arrhythmia. So what is arrhythmia, students? Arrhythmia is nothing but it is an abnormal heart rate, correct? So arrhythmias are nothing but these are abnormalities in the formation or the conduction of your impulse. So either the generation of impulse or your conduction of the impulse to your normal conducting system. So where is the impulse getting generated from? It is your SA node, correct? So cardiac impulse is generated from SA node. SA node is also referred to as your pacemaker of the heart. The SA node sends the impulse and the normal conduction pathway is SA node will send the impulse to the atria. There will be atrial contraction. There will be simultaneous atrial contraction. Then the impulse is going to go into the AV node. There will be a slight delay. Then it will go into the bundle of His. Then your bundle branches, your right bundle branch and your left bundle branch. Then your Purkinje system. So this is your normal conduction system of the heart. So when there is an abnormality in this conduction system, or when there is an increased heart rate or decreased heart rate, then it is going to be referred to as an arrhythmia. So when there is an change in the normal rhythm of the heart, is referred to as arrhythmia. So what is the normal sinus rhythm? Then when there is a change in the rhythm, it's called arrhythmia. Then what is normal sinus rhythm? So normal sinus rhythm, there are certain characteristics to be called as a normal sinus rhythm. First is your heart rate. Heart rate should be 60 to 100 beats per minute. Second, the impulse should be generated from your SA node. Third, the impulse should follow your normal conduction pathway. Fourth, the velocity of there should be normal velocity of the impulse. 5, the ECG findings. ECG, there should be normal P wave morphology, there should be normal PR interval, the QRS should be normal, RR interval should be maintained, and every P wave should be, and every QRS complex should be preceded by a P wave. So what are the mechanisms of arrhythmia? There are 3 main mechanisms of arrhythmia. One is your automaticity. So what is automaticity? It is the cell's natural response to cause depolarization, which if a cell can cause spontaneous depolarization, that is known as automaticity. So when there is an increased automaticity, which means there is an increased spontaneous depolarization, there is going to be obviously increased conduction of heart, increased heart rate. When there is a decreased depolarization or decreased automaticity, there is going to be decreased heart rate. So that is one mechanism causing arrhythmia. Second is your triggered activity. So what is triggered activity? When your SA node has beta 1 adrenergic receptors, when there is an increased sympathetic activity, there is going to be release of lot of catecholamines, which is your epinephrine, norepinephrine. This norepinephrine will come and act on your beta 1 adrenergic receptors, will release your, will cause calcium influx. This calcium influx will cause increased cardiac conduction. This is another mechanism of developing arrhythmia. Your third mechanism is your re-entry mechanism. So what is re-entry mechanism? So when the impulse comes to a AV node, let's take an AV node as an example. When the impulse comes to an AV node, it has to go through your 2 pathways, correct? A slow pathway and a fast pathway. When the impulse goes through these 2 pathways and then goes down, it is going to cause a contraction. But if suppose there is some abnormality, some block in the slow pathway or some impulse generation is affected, the fast pathway component will go back into the slow pathway and it will cause a re-entry circuit, which is known as your circle, correct? So this re-entry circle is very bad because it can result in arrhythmia easily. So this normal conduction should always be a unidirectional flow. It should come from atria to ventricle. When there is a re-entry conduction, the impulse is going to go back from the ventricle again into your atria. So which should not happen. So these are the 3 mechanisms which are going to result in your arrhythmia. So next we will see what is arrhythmia, what is the classification of arrhythmia. So you either classify arrhythmia based upon the location, that is your ventricular arrhythmia, or supraventricular arrhythmia, whatever is above the ventricle, that is your SA node, your AV node, your atria. Wherever there is arrhythmia, it is going to be called as supraventricular arrhythmia. Or it can be classified based upon the heart rate. If it is less than 60 beats per minute, it is called as a bradyarrhythmia, and if it is more than 100 beats per minute, it is known as the tachyarrhythmia. Examples of tachyarrhythmia include your supraventricular tachycardia, your atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, your ventricular tachycardia, and examples of bradycardia includes 2 things. One is your sinus nodal dysfunction, another is your AV block. So bradyarrhythmias can broadly be classified into your sinus node dysfunction. So your SA node is the main node which is going to be give your impulses, correct? So if your SA node gets affected, it's going to cause your sinus node dysfunction. That can cause bradyarrhythmia when there's no impulse, reduced impulse. And when there's a block in the AV node, normally there will be slight delay. When there's an increased block in the AV node, there's going to be decreased conduction of your impulse to the ventricle, which will result in decreased contractions and bradyarrhythmia. So what is bradyarrhythmia? Heart rate less than 60 beats per minute, includes your sinus node disease and your AV block. Clinical significance, there's going to be decreased cardiac output obviously because of decreased contractions, and there's going to be patient has going to develop certain symptoms such as syncope because of decreased blood flow to the brain. There can be fatigue, there can be giddiness. So sinus node dysfunction, what are the causes? There can be intrinsic and extrinsic causes. Intrinsic causes includes your fibrosis, your aging, and extrinsic causes includes your drugs. your hyperthyroidism, your myxedema coma, your hyperkalemia, your hypothermia, your hypercapnia, all these can cause a sick sinus syndrome or your sinus node dysfunction. So what are the types of this sinus nodal dysfunction? There can be sinus bradycardia, there can be sick sinus nodal exit block, there can be sinus arrest, there can be sinus pause, there can be tachybrady syndrome, there can be SA nodal ischemia and infarction, there can be SA nodal fibrosis. So all this will result in a bradyarrhythmia, correct? So before going into that, you need to know what is physiological arrhythmia. Physiological arrhythmia is usually seen with respiration. With inspiration, there is going to be inhibition of your vagus nerve, which will cause increased activity of your SA node, resulting in tachycardia, and similarly expiration will cause bradycardia. And sinus bradycardia, so what is sinus bradycardia? Sinus tachycardia, the rhythm won't change, only the heart rate is going to change. Sinus tachycardia can occur due to exercise, fever, hyperthyroidism, metabolic acidosis, pain, and all those causes. Whereas your sinus bradycardia can occur due to hypothyroidism, due to hypothermia, your Lyme disease, your medications such as beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, everything can cause your sinus bradycardia. So next is your bradyarrhythmias. First is your sinus arrest. As the name suggests, there is going to be arrest. There is complete absence of impulse being generated by the SA node. No impulse will come from the SA node. Next is the sinus pause. There will be delayed impulse arising from the SA node. Chronotropic incompetence. What is chronotropic incompetence? Normally with exercise, the heart rate should go up. If even with exercise the heart rate doesn't go up, if it stays the same or if it comes down, it is known as chronotropic incompetence, correct? So it is usually seen in elderly patients and your diabetic patients. Next is your tachybrady syndrome. As the name suggests, when you take an ECG for a patient and if the ECG shows both tachycardia and bradycardia in the same ECG, rhythm strip shows both tachycardia and bradycardia, or when there's a interchanging tachycardia and bradycardia, even if you see pulse for 1 minute, when there's a tachycardia and bradycardia occurring at the same, within same 1 minute, it is referred to as the tachybrady syndrome, which is also a form of bradyarrhythmia, correct? Next is sinus node fibrosis. When in elderly patients, in your as the age increases, there can be fibrosis occurring in the SA node. This sinus node fibrosis can also result in bradyarrhythmia. Next is your SA nodal ischemia and infarction. SA nodal ischemia and infarction is very common because of your inferior wall ischemia or inferior wall infarction. So your myocardial infarction, either be it your inferior wall MI or your posterior wall MI, can result in a ischemia of the SA node. This is because of the RCA, correct? The right coronary artery is supplying your SA node. So when the right coronary artery gets affected, there is going to be decreased blood flow to your SA node, resulting in SA nodal ischemia and infarction. Next is how will you evaluate all these bradyarrhythmias? So first you take a ECG. First step is always identify your pulse and your bradycardia, if it is present or not. Next you do a Holter monitoring. Look for the which detects the intermittent events happening. Next you look for event recorder or your loop recorder, which will see your intermittent syncope is occurring or not. What are the features seen? Next is your exercise testing, which is to evaluate your chronotropic incompetence, correct? Next is your lab evaluation. Always go for your lab values. Always look for thyroid levels. If it is either a hypothyroidism is present, look for electrolyte abnormalities. Look for your potassium and magnesium levels. Then look for your drug levels. Look for in presence of look for patient. Ask for patient's history of taking any beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, digoxin. Look for digoxin levels in the serum. So evaluate your lab values. Then you have found out that it is a bradyarrhythmia, and if some cause you have found out, the treatment is going to be just treat the underlying cause. You remove the cause, which is you remove the drugs which is causing the bradyarrhythmia, you correct the electrolyte abnormalities, the bradyarrhythmia will be settled. Next is your asymptomatic bradycardia, which requires no treatment. In acute bradyarrhythmia setting, you are going to give atropine, which is around 0.5 milligram IV every 3 to 5 minutes to settle the bradyarrhythmia. And then if even after giving atropine it is not settled, you go for transcutaneous pacing, correct? And even after transcutaneous pacing, if there is recurrent bradyarrhythmia, you go for permanent pacemaker. So what are the indications of permanent pacemaker? Symptomatic bradyarrhythmias, your symptomatic chronotropic incompetence, tachybrady syndrome, and your sinus pause, if this is occurring for more than 3 seconds, then it is indication for doing a permanent pacemaker. AV block. So the causes include your fibrosis and your sclerosis of conductive system. Ischemia can cause a AV block. Your medications like beta blockers, which include your metoprolol and propranolol, and your calcium channel blockers include your verapamil and diltiazem. All these can cause AV block. First degree AV block. So what is AV block? PR interval should be more than 200 milliseconds. Normal is 1.2 to 120 to 200 milliseconds, and if it is more than 200 PR interval, it is going to be called as a first degree AV block. So it is usually, first degree is usually asymptomatic and does not require any treatment unless patient is symptomatic. Second degree is divided into type 1 and type 2, Mobitz type 1 and Mobitz type 2. Mobitz type 1 is also known as Wenckebach. So progressive prolongation of, type 1 Mobitz type 1 is seen as a progressive prolongation of PR interval until there's one missed beat or a dropped beat. That is one, the PR interval getting prolonged, and after that there will be a absent QRS complex, and this is referred to as the type 1. Type 1 is also mostly benign, does not require any acute treatment until it is symptomatic. Type 2 is your fixed PR interval, it does not prolong, there's a fixed PR interval, but there will be intermittent dropped beats. QRS complexes will be missed here and there, which will be seen as a Mobitz type 2, which is usually an infranodal block. This has a risk of progression to complete heart block and definitely requires a pacemaker if it progresses. Third degree AV block is a complete, also known as complete heart block. The P and the Q waves have, QRS complexes and the P wave have no correlation. There is no association between P waves and QRS. The P waves will go in a separate pattern, QRS will go in a separate pattern, and this is referred to as a third degree heart block. Patient can have all these blocks. Patient can have fatigue, giddiness, syncope, and management is going to be your permanent pacemaker, and that is your final management. Next is your SVTs. SVT is also known as supraventricular tachyarrhythmia. So what are the types of SVT? Your supraventricular tachycardia containing AVRT, AVNRT, your atrial flutter, atrial fibrillation, multifocal atrial tachycardia. So what is AVNRT? AVNRT, it is the most common form of supraventricular tachycardia. So when impulse comes to the AV node, it is going to take two pathways, correct? One is the fast pathway, one is the slow pathway. The impulse travels to the fast pathway first, and then it will give a contraction of the ventricles. Now the impulse which is coming to the slow pathway will get ablated because of the impulse going from the fast pathway. Now one more thing is the fast pathway will have a longer refractive period. The slow pathway will have a shorter refractive period. So the second impulse when it will come to the slow pathway first, and it will again cause another contraction. So it involves dual AV nodal pathways and sudden onset and termination, and ECG will show a narrow QRS pattern with the absent P waves. P waves are usually hidden or retrograde can also be seen. So how will you treat vagal maneuvers? You do a carotid sinus massage. If that doesn't divert the rhythm, you go for beta blockers, go for propranolol, metoprolol. If that doesn't listen, then go for your ablation. That is your radio frequency ablation if recurrent AV blocks are recurrent SVTs keep on happening. Next is your AVRT. So AVRT also, in AVNRT, the re-entry is going to occur near the node, correct, AV node. Here the re-entry will occur in an accessory pathway. For example, there is a Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, the re-entry is going to happen through the bundle of Kent. Same re-entry happens to here. Treatment is again going to be the same. There is going to be radio frequency ablation of the accessory pathway, correct. Next is atrial tachycardia. There is going to be a single foci which is away from the SA node causing all these impulses. So the single foci you are going to find out and you are going to treat that condition. So it is often arises from a focal atrial site, often due to automaticity. ECG shows abnormal P wave morphology. Atrial flutter, there is going to be re-entrant rhythm in the right atrium. Usually the rate can go up to 300. ECG will show sawtooth flutter pattern, which is usually seen in the inferior leads, correct. So ventricular rate is around 150 beats per minute. That is, every second beat the AV node will allow from the atria to go into the ventricle. So it is referred to as a 2:1 block. It can also be a 3:1 block or a 4:1 block, but the most common one is a 2:1 block. Treatment, again rate control, go for beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, next go for anticoagulants, and finally you go for radio frequency ablation. Atrial fibrillation, it is an acute emergency. Patient will have a disorganized atrial electrical activity, correct. Irregular ventricular response. ECG will also show irregular RR intervals with the absent P waves. So causes can be hypertension, it can be ischemic heart disease, valvular disease, thyrotoxicosis, complications. So what happens when there is an atrial fibrillation? There is going to be spasms of the atria. There can be pooling of, there is no proper contraction. So there will be pooling of blood in the atrium. This blood will become a clot, and when this clot gets dislodged, this clot can go into the brain and cause an acute ischemic stroke, which is referred to as a thromboembolism. It can go and cause embolism in other areas also. So always look out for your thromboembolism risk, and also it can lead on to heart failure. So how will you evaluate AF? Look for ECG changes, irregular RR intervals, and your P wave should be absent. That is an ECG. Next, look for thyroid function test. Look for echo. Look for any valvular heart disease. Then you calculate Chadwick score. Chadwick score is a score which we use to calculate to assess the stroke risk in an AF patient. When the Chadwick score comes high, when the risk of stroke is high, you start a prophylactic anticoagulation to prevent the stroke. Correct. So management, always go for rate control first, go for beta blockers or calcium channel blockers. Rhythm control, you are going to go with antiarrhythmics such as amiodarone. Amiodarone dose is 150 mg in the first 10 minutes bolus, followed by 1 mg per kg over next 6 hours, which comes around 360 mg, and then 0.5 mg per kg in the next 18 hours, which comes to 540 mg, correct. So anticoagulation is based on Chadwick score. Next is the atrial premature complex. One early atrial depolarization from ectopic focus occurring is referred to as atrial premature complex. May be asymptomatic, does not require treatment until patient is symptomatic, and premature P wave with abnormal morphology will be seen in ECG. Next is your ventricular arrhythmia. So ventricular arrhythmias have ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation, and your tarsus deep pointers. This ventricular premature complex. So what is ventricular premature complex? Similar to atrial premature complex, there will be a focus elsewhere other than the SA node. There is going to be a foci which is arising from the ventricle, which will give an impulse on its own. So arising from the ectopic ventricular focus, ECG will be a wide QRS. There won't be any P wave, and it will be followed by a compensatory pause. So isolated PVCs are nothing to worry, but when it is a continuous PVCs or more than or equal to 3 consecutive PVCs, then which and the heart rate is more than 100 beats per minute, we are going to suspect your ventricular tachycardia. So ventricular tachycardia can be either monomorphic and polymorphic. Monomorphic single foci, polymorphic multiple foci. And ECG monomorphic VT is going to have a single morphology of QRS, whereas polymorphic will have multiple morphology, multiple amplitude. Correct. So common causes of this VT is ischemic heart disease, cardiomyopathy. Management is going to go with amiodarone again, electrical cardioversion, and ICD, implantable cardioverter defibrillator in severe cases. Tarsus deep pointers is nothing but it is a polymorphic VT which has a twisting of your QRS complexes. That's twisting of QRS complexes around your isoelectric line. So these can be caused by your electrolyte abnormality, hypokalemia, hypomagnesemia. Drugs can cause such as macrolides, quinolones. Congenital long QT syndrome can be seen. Treatment again go for a rhythm control first, that is IV magnesium sulfate, and correct electrolytes, and temporary pacing can be tried. Next is your VF. VF is an acute emergency. You see VF in an ECG, you treat the patient immediately. So it is a chaotic ventricular depolarization leading to cardiac arrest. ECG will be irregular, no discernible QRS complexes will be seen. Causes can be acute MI, cardiomyopathy, your electrocution can cause, requires immediate defibrillation and CPR. Do not wait. And what are the certain inherited ventricular arrhythmias include your Brugada syndrome, your long QT syndrome, your catecholinergic polymorphic VT. And one point I want you guys to remember before this class is antiarrhythmic drugs. So antiarrhythmic drugs are usually classified with your Vaughan Williams classification, correct? So there are 5 classes. Class 1 is going to be your sodium channel blockers, which includes your quinidine, lidocaine. Class 2 is your beta blockers, which includes your metoprolol, your propranolol, your atenolol. That is the cardioselective beta blockers. Class 3 is going to be potassium channel blockers, your amiodarone, your sotalol. Class 4 is going to be your calcium channel blockers, your verapamil and diltiazem. And others is adenosine and digoxin. And adenosine and digoxin is your class 5 drugs, correct? So thank you students for this exciting session. I will meet you guys with another topic soon.